Johnson Johnson is getting a boost this morning after seeing sales rise 6.3% in the second quarter. The company also raised its full-year guidance. The healthcare giant saw success in its med tech sector in particular. That jumped 12.9% year over year in terms of sales. Johnson Johnson Chief Financial Officer Joe Wolk joins us now alongside our Anjali Kemlani. Joe, it's great to see you. Strong quarter from you guys. I want to dig into medical devices a little bit since that seemed to be such a driver for the quarter. I know there's some normalization here. We're still talking about normalization post-pandemic, people getting procedures done that they were holding off on. How long does that trend last? How long is that sort of catch-up tail, if you will?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Julie. I would say it's difficult to predict, right? I think folks have been talking about a backlog of surgical procedures ever since the pandemic started to wind down. I would say that what you've heard from insurers, as well as some of our competitors, is that the senior citizens seem to be more willing to and receptive to coming in and getting their clinical procedures done that maybe they put off even after the pandemic had substantially been done. I would say the other thing that's an important factor is just the amazing healthcare workers. There's more stability in the workforce, so procedures are able to be scheduled on a normal cadence. And I think both of those are factoring in well. That certainly did help our earnings and our outlook for medtech, our performance in medtech. But I also wouldn't minimize just the new products we have in that space, too, that are catalyst to the growth that you're seeing, which we reported this morning. We have a robotic surgery-assisted device for knees known as VELYS. We have a catheter known as Q-Dot Micro that is enabling better efficiency for technicians to treat heart arrhythmia in our electrophysiology business. And then just a fantastic new contact lens known as Oasis Max, which enables people who need glasses to see far away and also readers to see close up, the opportunity to have one contact lens to address that all. So there's the market that certainly is a nice tailwind, but it's also the contribution of newer products that we have going on.
Joe, Anjali here. I know that there was so much that drove this boost in the earnings this year, but I did hear a little bit about data and AI, and I wonder what you guys are thinking about in context of that. I know it's really been kind of ubiquitous in the industry for quite some time, and a lot of other companies are sort of taking advantage of the buzz around it to kind of brag. So tell me about how Johnson Johnson's thinking about that.
Yeah, so Anjali, we've been actually investing in data analytics capability, machine learning, automated intelligence for a number of years now. We're building up that to be a capability with certainly an expertise in the function, but also making it a language that's understood by all of our associates. Where we see the real benefit is hopefully identifying drug candidates, identifying patients that may work on more effectively, and hopefully bringing down the cost of development for either medical surgical procedures or drug development. So that's where we really see the benefit. Obviously, the world is getting smarter with all the information. There's now some medical devices that, let's say, a knee implant has the prospectus down the road of potentially having information, a chip in that knee replacement system to let the orthopedic know how that patient's responding or maybe what's going wrong so that adjustments can be made appropriately. So there's a lot going on. Our robotic platforms for surgeries themselves certainly has a lot of, I'd say, automated intelligence in it. So we're maybe not as pronounced. It's not our bread and butter, so to speak, but we're certainly using it as an enabler to really focus on life-saving medical differentiated innovation.
I mean, and Joe, for you as the numbers guy, saving money is as sexy as any sort of technological innovation.
Absolutely.
So how soon do you expect to sort of see that part of it bearing fruit? In other words, bringing the cost of drug discovery and development down?
Yeah, I think it's going to take a couple years until we really refine the processes around it. I could say, though, Julie, and it is sexy to save money, we've been using this in some of our administrative functions. So some of the accounting functions, some of the HR processes, some of the information system processes in the background. We've already banked, I would say, hundreds of millions of dollars over the last few years by automating a number of these processes. So it's evolving, and I would think that the gains that would happen in drug development down the road certainly might have even more amplification and more benefit to the P&L.
Joe, I want to switch gears here a little bit and talk about the Inflation Reduction Act and the impacts there. I know you're not the chief legal counsel, but you did, the company did bring the lawsuit against the health department as well as Medicare on the drug pricing negotiations. What are you expecting about the impact financially that has sort of spurred this lawsuit?
Yeah, so, the lawsuit is really about what we feel is, like the Chamber of Commerce, like industry peers, the assault on innovation, right? If you think about what the government is looking to do here, it's essentially set prices. There recently was a report that was issued that suggested 85% of Americans have access to new medicines in that first year when they become available. That number, quite frankly, in my opinion, should be 100%. You contrast that with governments that set prices, let's say France and Canada. Those numbers dropped to 43% and 21%. So this really serves to hurt patients. In terms of the impact to J&J, we'll have to see. We don't even have the list of drugs quite yet. And we're broadly based across both of our portfolios, medtech and pharmaceuticals. So we're well positioned to absorb any impact. It's less about that. But Anjali, I know you and I have spoken in quarters past where to reduce inflation, I think they've gone after the wrong target here. We just issued our 6th annual transparency report, and that report indicates that we've decreased prices in 2022 by 3.5% in our pharmaceutical portfolio. Contrast that to when you went to the grocery store, when you went to fill up your gas tank. It's very, very different. And while those are Johnson & Johnson numbers I referenced, it's really emblematic of the industry. Discounts and rebates as a percent of list price have gone from roughly on average 25% 5 to 6 years ago to now 55%. But unfortunately, those discounts and rebates aren't getting into the patient's hands that need them. Copays are going up, insurance premiums are going up. So I think they focused on the wrong target here.
It's interesting because I think it feels like, at least in the popular perception, Joe, that it's not so much drug prices overall. It is really some particular drugs that stand out as being unusually expensive, or what seems to the layperson as unusually expensive. How does the industry, as an industry, sort of tackle that issue?
Yeah, so it's something we're very cognizant of, Julie. When we have great innovation, it doesn't really do anybody good if they can't afford it or they don't have access. So one of the principles that we pride ourselves on here at Johnson & Johnson, and I believe it's the pharmaceutical industry in general, is we want to make sure that folks have access to these medicines. In addition to the discounts and rebates I mentioned, there's monies that are being funneled to copay foundations to help people access these medicines. So again, I think there's the perception, the popular perception, as you put it, that when folks walk into a pharmacy on a monthly basis where they used to pay $10, maybe $5 for their copay, now they're paying $75 to $100. They associate that with the drug manufacturer, the innovator who's taking the risk and putting capital to work for these differentiated healthcare solutions. It's really it's a convoluted and confusing system for most patients.
And Joe, to go back to the company's outlook, I saw a little bit of analyst commentary today that actually called your forecast conservative if things sort of go right. What's the potential upside here for this year?
Yeah, so there's more to meet the eye in our earnings guidance going forward. We did take our earnings up by 10 cents per share. But the operational improvement that belies that is really 28 cents per share. There are two discrete factors that were strategic in nature that really kept it at a dime. The first is our non-controlling interest in Kenvue, the consumer health company that we're separating out. That's simply a matter of accounting, and that's worth about 8 cents. The other is an investment we made during the quarter worth about 10 cents per share to really expand our portfolio, improve our future outlook for cell-based therapies, specifically for B-cell malignancies. A lot of our competitors actually take guidance down when they have those type of investments. Here, our performance was so strong that we were able to digest both of those items, and they're great strategic plays for the future.
And speaking of Kenvue, by the way, we're going to be speaking to the CEO of that company in just a few moments. So a great twofer that we got here today, Joe.
Great.
Good to talk to you. Joe Wolk, Johnson Johnson CFO, and our Anjali Kemlani. Thank you. Well, coming up next, we're going to hear from the Kenvue CEO and much more. You're watching Yahoo Finance.